Honourable John Ruddick.
Mr Acting President, as usual, I recently attended an ANZAC Day dawn service. Many Australians unquestionably accept that while it was terrible so many Anzacs died in the First World War, it was worth it because if we didn't win that war, we would not be free today. Libertarians dissent from that view. Some wars are necessary. World War I is not one of them. Miscalculations by the political class resulted in 15 million dead, including 46,000 Australians, and 25 million wounded, including 114,000 Australians. The war overturned Europe. The Ottoman, Austro-Hungarian, German and Russian empires all collapsed. Russia descended into a civil war, killing another 10 million and then unleashing the Soviet Union on the world. In the aftermath, the victors' malice at Versailles deprived the British and the French of any bragging rights about being the good guys. Vindictiveness towards Germany produced such a backlash. It brought the Nazis to power, who then gave us an even bigger war, the Holocaust and then the Cold War. So ANZAC Day is sacred, but not for the reasons we've been told. ANZAC Day is the day to renew our vigilance in preventing the political class throwing us into the abyss again. The Germans and the British had no ingrained dislike for each other. During the first Christmas in the trenches, there was widespread reports of the English and Germans enjoying food, footy and carols together. World War I was a top-down driven war. After the Napoleonic Wars, Europe had enjoyed a century of the fruits of peace. The Industrial Revolution, global trade, scientific acceleration, and the widespread adoption of liberal democratic constitutions and values. The origins of the First World War are contested, but libertarians can cut straight to the chase. The war was caused by the Austro-Hungarian state blaming all Serbians for the actions of half a dozen criminal extremists, who just happened to be Serbian. After the shocking assassination of the Austrian Crown Prince, the Serbians went into overdrive to round up the criminals and to comply as much as possible with the Austrian demands. But in the crisis, the war hawks sadly dominate. Collective punishment involves harming others for a crime the others had nothing to do with, but who just happened to share a characteristic with the criminal. It is an absurdity that is magnified in the age of the nation state. After 9/11, the Bush administration blamed Afghanistan for the attacks when it was a criminal gang of non-Afghans who just happened to be hiding out in the remote mountains of that nation. The disastrous regime change wars across the Middle East post 9/11 could all have been avoided if Colin Powell had flown to Kabul on September the 12th and said, "Mr. Taliban, we know you were not involved in the attacks, but the gang that was behind it is hiding out somewhere here, and we've got $10 billion to whoever finds them and delivers them to us." Bin Laden would have been captured and punished, and then the world could have moved on. But instead we chose forever war, millions dead, trillions in debt, and a whole new generation in the Middle East who hates the West. Escalation begets escalation. Professor John Mearsheimer from the University of Chicago visits Australia in a few days. I hope the public can take an interest in his views on the Ukraine war. Mearsheimer belongs to the realist school of foreign policy, whose sound, prudent judgment won the Cold War without firing a shot. I'm interested in what Mearsheimer has to say about the Ukraine war, because he warned well in advance of precisely this tragedy that is unfolding before us. In fact, Mearsheimer alone had urged Ukraine not to dispose of its nuclear weapons in the mid-1990s, advice Kyiv must now regret not taking. Mearsheimer warned that if NATO betrayed its commitments and expanded east and encircled Russia with a military alliance, then Russia would have a dangerously negative reaction. He warned a destabilised Russia would become nationalistic, militaristic and trend away from liberalisation. The Ukraine war has the potential to spiral like the events of July 1914. Not even Greg Sheridan, Tony Abbott or Peter Jennings today attempt to defend the 4 failed regime wars this century: Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya and Syria. But we are now meant to trust the precise same group of individuals who gave us those disastrous wars in a proxy confrontation with nuclear-armed Russia on Russia's doorstep over a border dispute. I hope either Donald Trump, Robert Kennedy, Michael Rectenwald of the Libertarian Party, or even Jill Stein of the Green Party is elected American president in 6 months' time. All want peace talks and will stop funding the butchery. Every presidential candidate is wise on Ukraine, bar President Biden, who is a puppet of the forever war camp, the most dangerous fools on earth.